Hi, everybody. Welcome to On the Edge with Deneen Dias. Very excited today to be talking a lot about AI with Enrico of Botkeeper and Todd of Vic.ai. Enrico, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Enrico Palmerino. I'm the founder and CEO of Botkeeper.
And Todd, please introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you. My name's Todd Robinson. I'm the head of strategic accounts for Vic.ai.
So I really wanted to spend the next 30 minutes talking about AI in the accounting profession. And as most of you hopefully have heard, Botkeeper has put a partnership in place with Vic.ai, which is exciting because I think this is the first type of partnership where technology has come together and said, let's bring more to the profession together. We're stronger together than doing it on our own. So Enrico, could you kind of talk a little bit about the partnership and how it stemmed and where you see us going together?
Yeah, I think the first note on the partnership is it very much aligns with the overarching communal structure of the accounting industry. I think everyone wants to help each other out, create the greatest impact, the greatest value. And so Botkeeper and Vic, started a conversation where we basically said, look, we both have finite amounts of capital and resources. We have big visions for where we think the industry is going to go. Let's focus our attention on certain areas, avoid, doing or, developing or building overlapping product or technology. And if we were going to do this, where's that sweet spot? And is there a world where Vic and Botkeeper are a united technology that provides incremental value to the accounting industry? And so I just think it's cool from fundamentally just the fact that two companies can start having those conversations and very quickly align on the vision and the values that we're trying to instill within the industry, and then take action on it. And I'm excited to say that as a result of this partnership, we'll have an embedded autonomous AP module in Botkeeper that we didn't have to, spend all the capital that Vic has spent into building theirs, and Vic as a autonomous AP module will now have an extended platform and functionality to manage the various other aspects of a CAS workflow and bookkeeping automation that Botkeeper's built. So yeah, it's really cool. I'm excited to see what happens, and I think ultimately it's just more incremental value to the accountants and accounting industry.
And Todd, I'll let you add to that.
Yeah, I mean, this is really about the digital transformation and where the technology is taking us and bringing two AI pioneers together to provide a better offering to help make our accounting firm partners and clients ultimately more efficient. That's what this is really all about. When we first launched the partnership, I called it the first ever AI alliance, and I think we'll continue to see a lot more of this. Prior to that, excuse me, I think we were kind of viewed as a competitor when we were both solving for different things kind of in a roundabout way. So logically, it just made sense for us to come together and to form this partnership to help one another out, and not just ourselves, but again, the accounting profession in general. So that's where this is really taking us. And we all know AI and machine learning sits at the top of that technology spectrum. It's going to continue to evolve the profession. I'm sure we'll certainly get into some of the impacts or the positive impacts of AI and machine learning here in this conversation in a little bit, but ultimately that's what we're solving for.
Yeah, well, Todd, you and I have known each other for years, and we've both been helping firms transform through the use of technology for years. And when I came to Botkeeper, it was true that I was hearing that we competed. Firms had the perception that we competed, and I was digging into this thinking, I don't think we do compete. Like we're AI, both of us, but the way we're solving problems for firms and the way we're going about it is so different, and why can't you use both of us? And so I'm just thrilled that here we are, right? And certainly I reached out to you and you and I started talking, and Enrico, you were already talking to the founders of Vic.ai. And I'm really thrilled to be able to talk about this partnership. And it's going to be launching in Q4, where Vic.ai will be embedded within the Botkeeper, and Enrico, it's now called the Botkeeper Operating System, and it'll be an option. So firms that have a lot of invoicing can click on Vic and be able to use your AI within our platform. So Todd, I'd love for you to kind of talk about the power of the bot, the power of the machines, and the power that the two of us together bring to firms.
Yeah, I mean, what Vic.ai is solving for is what we call the pre-accounting type transactions. You know, all the data, all the documents that's ultimately got to get into the general ledger. And our founders started with our invoice processing module first. We've devoted a ton of money and a ton of resources into solving for doing one thing exceptionally well. We're going to continue to build out additional modules and be able to solve for other types of pre-accounting type transactions by leveraging the AI and the machine learning to do all that coding for us. You know, the heavy lifting of having to capture and code all that data off of those pre-accounting type transactions, which for the most part has been traditionally done. You know, it's still a very manually dependable part of the process. So when we start to look at the amount of time and the amount of people that are involved in that process and the overhead that it requires and how we could help impact the bottom line by leveraging the technology, that's ultimately what we're solving for. And again, we're doing it exceptionally well. It really boils down to, you know, we're calling ourselves a true AI provider because what Vic does is we're 100% dependent on the AI and the accuracy of what the AI is capturing and coding. And we're seeing that at levels of 90% or greater. And in some cases, our accuracy is at 100%, where we've achieved what we call autopilot, therefore bypassing the human altogether. And that data off of those pre-accounting transactions and those documents is going straight to the general ledger. And, you know, Deneen, kind of getting back to your point about, you know, how we were perceived as competitors, I don't know what was really driving that. It might have been our two great marketing departments, you know, and just the message that we were putting out there, or maybe I think it was the perception.
Yeah.
You know, because one thing I've learned about joining Vic, and I've been with the company for almost 2 years now, it's up to us to continue to educate the profession. There's still a lot of question and doubt about AI in general, you know, aside from how we use it in our everyday lives, right? What we don't know is how can we use it in the business world, in our profession, day to day. And so I think there's been a lot of confusion created from that, and just a lot of people don't know. So it's up to us to educate people on the differences between what Botkeeper is solving for and what Vic is solving for, and why we decided to partner together. And so ultimately, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, I would add to that and say that I think the big challenge is you hear AI with both of our companies, and it's one of those where if you're a firm potentially like, oh yeah, we need to get AI in our practice, we've got Vic, so we check that box. It's like, well, no, like you have AI in your email, you have AI in other, like in your Google, your Word docs, auto-populating things. You have AI in search and videos and Netflix. It permeates all different aspects of your life, and you can't just say, all right, I got AI, check, because it's only the application of one piece. And AI tends to be a very siloed application, so you do need multiple tools to call it fully AIify your firm.
You absolutely do. I refer to it as an AI strategy. I think the accounting firms have to sit back holistically, to your point, Enrico, and they have to ask themselves, do we have an AI strategy? And then secondly, what is it that we need that AI to solve for? Hence, to your part, the silos. Because there is a false misperception out there that AI is like a light switch. You can turn it on and it's going to solve all my problems overnight, and that's just not the case. It's going to be siloed. So, in our case, if a firm or a corporate, accounting and finance department is looking to make their invoice process more efficient, Is there an AI solution out there that can solve for that? Absolutely, that's Vic.ai, right? Okay, so great, that you can check off that box, and now we have an AI strategy in place for that. And so I think the biggest takeaway, to any of the listeners today is, do you have an AI strategy in mind, and what AI is going to solve for that, in addition to platforms like Botkeeper and everything else that you guys are doing to assist with it as well?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what I've been hearing, and all of us, thankfully, we're traveling again, right? We're out there, we're talking with firms, we're meeting with firms, we're going to the conferences. And as we're out there, the number one thing that all of us are hearing that's a real issue for firms right now is they don't have enough talent to get the work done. There's more work than there is workers at firms, right? And people are leaving the profession. I heard last week 70% are leaving, and they're not going into another firm, right? They're not going into another bookkeeping, right? They're leaving altogether. So this has been happening over the last couple of years, but the pandemic really, shifted things, and firms are not able to grow because they just can't take on more clients because they're stuck. And so that's the problem that technology solves for, like Vic.ai and Botkeeper. It's that simple, I think, is don't let lack of talent stop you from growing. And so you're right, Todd. I think this is a part of the strategy. And it's not only part of the strategy firms have to put together now, it also is a goal of like, what am I going to be doing around this in 2022? What are my growth strategies? How can I use technology more to automate more, to service more clients, and to help, our small businesses more too, because small businesses are still struggling and need firms to help them more. So Enrico, I would love for you to kind of share those trends that you're seeing too, and how you see us in this partnership solving for some of the issues that are happening right now in the profession.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all just boils down from a capacity problem. It's a similar problem to if anyone's gone to a restaurant recently and noticed that the hours of operation are highly limited, or that the wait times have gotten a lot longer, or that there's signs saying like apologies for delays because we're short on staff. The issue that the restaurant industry is facing right now is the same issue that the accounting industry is facing, except the accounting industry's issue isn't a matter of the world kind of rebalancing and then the population of restaurant workers will return. In the accounting industry, that gap between supply of accountants and demand of financial services is widening. And so that's why you've got companies like Vic and Botkeeper with investors that are putting a lot of capital into solving this problem, because they don't see this as a short-term problem to be solved. They see this as a widening problem. So if you've ever had a fear that AI is going to put people out of jobs, I think you talk to any of the firms that are using Botkeeper, they're all still hiring. Like they haven't stopped hiring. What we've just allowed them to do is keep up with the demands and needs of just their existing client base, let alone, to your point, Deneen, actually grow a little bit faster and take on the clients that are coming to them versus turning them away. And when you look at just some of the data points, and one of the ones that you mentioned, which is 70% of accountants that are leaving an accounting job are leaving public accounting altogether. That's big. And why does that matter? Why is that so big? Well, when you have year over year new entrants and enrollment into the accounting industry down on an average of 10% year over year, so you don't have some new population entering. You have the average age of an accountant at 55. That means in 15 years, 75% of accountants will be retired. And then you've got the population that is currently there that is not near retirement actually choosing to leave. That human capital is rapidly shrinking. And you're seeing this too, like the supply demand economics. Staff accountant starting salaries bumped 20% at the start of this year. Like that's a direct correlation to can't find and hire people. So what do? You offer to pay people a lot more money to attract people to come into the industry or stay altogether. And I don't see this getting better, because even if that wasn't happening, let's just say you curbed that and you stabilized it or grew the accountant population, the demand for financial services is growing exponentially. You've got new business formation growing exponentially year over year. I think it's like 76% of businesses now outsource their accounting function. So it's becoming a wide trend to just like, that's what you do. And why are more businesses outsourcing it? Well, in a world where you can't find and hire accountants, and that the businesses that specialize in finding, hiring, and retaining accountants can't find and hire accountants, business owners who aren't specialists in accounting probably are having a tough time finding and hiring accountants too, more than ever. So they're just going to the people that have, established businesses around this. So, it is an enablement function. It's not I don't think AI has this like, it's disruption, maybe in some industries, but in the accounting industry, this is just in order to allow firms to maintain status quo, let alone, serve the needs of the market.
Yeah. I agree. And I think I agree. I mean, all the research that I've been reading, and Todd, I think Vic.ai has been sharing, is that AI actually makes people happier. And at a time when people are leaving, people are still stressed, the pandemic is still, the Delta variant is kids are back at school, it's causing problems. So at a time when we're still very stressed and mental health is an issue, if you can find things to free up your talent, to make them, happier, to make their jobs better, to enrich their jobs, don't fight it, I think is my point, is especially right now when there's such a need, don't fight it. And so we're going to be bringing you more education, and we wanted to announce a couple of things. First, I think, Della, if you can put in the chat, Todd and my marketing team has put a really great blog together on this partnership and about AI. So we're going to leave that so you can read more about it. Share it with others at your firm if this is something that they're interested in or something that they're worried about, or if they're concerned that AI is replacing them, technology is replacing them. That's not the case. There's some good information there. And then Todd, you also have great relationships, and we've been talking with some other AI companies, and we want to come together to educate more. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I mean, it all kind of stems off of this AI alliance that I think Botkeeper and Vic.ai has formed and positioned very nicely. So we'd like to continue that with a webinar that Botkeeper is going to sponsor on their behalf on November 3rd with both of our companies, in addition to MindBridge AI and Anduin AI. MindBridge is solving for helping to evaluate the risk needs associated with in the audit world and to speed up that process with their AI platform. And Anduin AI is an AI solution that's helping accounting firms speed up the AR part of their process and their billing methodologies and things like that. So this is the first AI Alliance webinar of its kind, and we'd love for you to participate on November 3rd. So I guess stay tuned for more information to come about that. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, and as I've worked with firms over the last 13, 14 years, I'd say about 3-4 years ago, I started to see chief innovation officers at firms that never had CIOs before. And I think that, larger firms aren't known as being innovative. So they were trying to bring those CIOs in to look at ways to automate more, to look at ways to use technology more. And I know some of those CIOs have kind of struggled because the firms have wanted to change, but change is hard. But I think for other firms, that don't have a CIO, somebody at the firm is leading the charge and is very passionate about technology, is very passionate about change, is very passionate about evolving. And so that's really, I think, who we're trying to talk to more about. Yeah, there's great technology that you can easily bring into the firm and use AI with clients in all different capacities, on the audit side, on the billing side, on the invoice side, on the client accounting side. We're all here to come in and help these firms evolve and thrive. So I'm looking forward to that webinar, Todd. Thanks for being the brainchild around that, and there's more to come. But before we go, because we have another 10 minutes, I'd like to spend the remainder of this time together really talking about what's next from this partnership. And so Enrico, as we're working on bringing the Vic.ai technology into the Botkeeper technology, can you share sort of your thoughts on what that's going to look like and what that workflow is going to be?
Sure. So Botkeeper, similar to Vic, handles a pre-accounting function. So we like to think like the skilled accountant is the one that's taking care of the complex, like they're the exception handling, the month-end journal entries, the complicated accruals, deferrals, rev rec, etc. And we'll take care of the categorization, classification, reconciliation, and basic payroll journal entries. And then with Vic also automate the AP component. And so what this lets us do is really round out that, I'd say like the whole pre-accounting layer. I'd say like the next thing is probably on the accounts receivable side of the equation. If there's something to be done there on invoicing and tying that into, potentially rev rec. So maybe something for us, the two of our companies, to eventually work on together. And the way I see this is it should allow a firm to kind of follow more of this path where you're taking what was previously an app stack of separate and disparate systems that don't really talk to each other. Maybe they talk to QBO or Xero or your general ledger for that matter. And you're starting to merge them together, because that merging and consolidation just means one point of system that you can use and manage the whole workflow, greater visibility, and like true integration where a task assigned to an AP function has the appropriate documentation attached and supported on it that has a communication layer and really ties it all back so that it's unified and normalized. And for where we take the partnership, I think our company's hope is that if you're currently it's just like the irony is like you had a lot of firms out there that were Vic and Botkeeper users, you can merge that license into one license where it's a Botkeeper license with Vic embedded, and at that point that's like the ideal of the world. And if it doesn't cost you any more to do that, then now you've gotten way more value, way more feature and functionality and better visibility for the same cost. And that's, I think, ultimately like the goal of tech is how do you use technology to deliver a better result faster and more efficiently than you could otherwise.
Yep. Todd, do you want to add anything to that?
I think there's so much tremendous opportunity out there that this is also going to give firms the ability to continue to go upstream and start to provide more services to their clients that they might have been afraid to pursue in the past, right? And accounts payable service is a great example of that. And I think there's going to be more to come because, I mean, think about it. If I'm talking to a potential new client and we discover that, they have 10,000 invoices a month, right? I might have shied away from that opportunity because I didn't have the resources, meaning the people in place to take on that kind of work, and I certainly didn't have the right technology in place to support it. And it's not just the AI technology that Vic does. You also need to be able to manage the people and the technology behind it. So you have a task or a project management need there as well, which is something Botkeeper solves for. How are you going to funnel all that documentation into one repository? Well, that's something that Botkeeper's platform can solve for as well. And I think firms continue to struggle with this, and so this partnership, and by bringing the technology together in addition to Botkeeper's talent, I think is going to allow firms to continue to go more upstream into those more value added services to provide to their clients that they might have shied away from in the past. And this isn't about doing more with less. This is about doing more with the same amount of resources that you have, but leveraging the right technology to support you. And ultimately, I think that's the opportunity in front of all of us here and how we're going to best support that.
I agree. Well, and I think, it solves a lot to what you're saying. Like right now, firms are turning the accounting business away. Okay, so yes, you can say yes because you've got an engine now. You've got a machine that's not just people, but it's technology that allows you to service this new business that right now, don't turn it away. We're saying say yes to the business, use the technology, change your people and process, but embrace the technology. Start that shift now. Start it in Q4. Tax season is coming. So you've got to free up your team, right? So start bringing these new technologies and processes in place to say yes to all the business that you're turning away. Can you imagine if you could say yes to all of this new business, right, that wants your help? And then I think not only are you able to say yes, you're able to strategically think about who you're marketing towards. Are you going to market up market? Are you wanting to service larger clients? Well, you've got the right technology that allows you to service larger clients. Or do you just want to say yes to more small business, right? And you're turning that business away because from a price point perspective, your talent was too expensive. Well, now you've got an engine that makes you able to say yes to the small business too. So,
or doing more for your existing client base. I mean, I'm always shocked when I ask firms, how many of the tax clients you have do you do CAS services for? And they're like, those are our tax clients, and we have our CAS clients, and it's more like some of our CAS clients are tax clients as well. And I'm just like baffled by that, because I'm like, who do you think is doing their CAS services? If it's not you, like either it's not getting done at all, and that could be your annual kind of write-up clients. But there's an opportunity for you to upsell them on more value and ongoing. And if they are doing ongoing, then it's an in-house bookkeeper, a contract bookkeeper, or potentially another firm. And all of those things are points of contention with what you do. Like, so how do you take on more of the ownership of that, which will ease everything else that you're doing, and also build a stronger, more fruitful relationship with your client?
I'm also amazed. A lot of times the firms don't know answers to the questions like that. How many of your tax clients are you providing a monthly bookkeeping service to? Well, we don't know. Like, how can you not know? It's fundamentally like a key question that you should know. I talk to a lot of accounting firms, as we all do, and there's two things that they're telling me. They're all hiring and they're all growing. Okay, those two don't go together very well if you don't have a technology to support it. That's just a fact. There's only two ways to grow. You have to either have to hire more people to do more work, or partner with the right technology vendors out there to support you in both ways, right? So that's the opportunity that I see out there for sure.
I think it's an exciting time. I think it's a really exciting time. I think, anytime there's a transition that pauses firms to sort of pause and think and put a new strategy in place, I think it's exciting. And the firms that we're working with, right? Because we're both working with so many firms that are calling us saying, hey, we need this, right? And help us understand how we can take advantage of it. Those are the ones that are thriving. Those are the ones that are growing. Those are the ones that are increasing in revenue. Because that's the other research that I've been reading, is the more AI you bring in, the more profitable you can become. Enrico, I see both of you shaking your head. We've got 3 minutes, so let's talk about profitability. What are your thoughts around that?
So I think I was just doing this exercise in another talk that I gave, where I basically showed that, like with Botkeeper, you could increase the profitability on an account by, say, maybe it's like 30 to 50%. That's great. Like that's quite awesome. But what that doesn't take into consideration is the fact that on that 30 or 50%, effectively what you've done is you've taken, let's say, 4 hours of work off of this account. If you just took that 4 hours of work now and you applied it to another account, you just generated maybe another $500 a month and bookkeeping service. So you don't want to just look at one aspect of it. You want to look at the fact that unlocking and freeing up that resource allows not just savings on the current client, but another $1,000 or $500 a month in revenue on the next client. And then that next client is also going to have incremental capacity. So it kind of trickles down, ends up generating tens of thousands of more dollars for you as a firm in revenue.
And Todd, you've got 1 minute left. What are your thoughts on firm profitability with growth?
I'll say ditto, and I'll just add a little bit more to it. I mean, it's almost every vendor out there says I could save you time and money, right? Okay, but I think the vendors that are pushing the AI component of it and proving out the ROI and the value proposition of what that AI is actually doing. Again, this is around the educational side of it. For Vic.ai, it's the invoice process, which has always traditionally been manually done. And first of all, who wants to do heads down data entry, right? Nobody wants to do heads down data entry. Let's be honest here. And frankly, if you're paying somebody to do heads down data entry, you're overpaying them, which goes back into Enrico's equation for an ROI to begin with, right? Because if we're able to reduce the amount of time that it's taken somebody to key in that data, on average from what we know can be 10 to 12 minutes per invoice and the complexity of that invoice down to under a minute, we're giving them essentially back possibly 10 minutes of time per invoice, okay? Times their hourly rate, times the amount of time that we can give back to them. To Enrico's point of being able to bring on more billable work, I mean, it's a tremendous ROI. I would say greater than 30 to 40%. I'd say like 60 to 70%. And that's something we're constantly proving out. We're getting into the autonomous intelligence side and the predictive analytics side of our data lake and being able to prove that out and give those statistics back to our users to create that value proposition of what we're solving for. And I think that's the opportunity. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. So we did post in the chat a link to that blog post. And if anyone's interested in learning more about the Botkeeper Vic.ai partnership or how you can get started with both of us, I'm going to raise my hand and say reach out to Deneen at Botkeeper.com. Start with Botkeeper. We'll get you and your clients started with Botkeeper, knowing that Vic.ai is coming. But know that Todd and I talk like, I feel like every other day now. We're texting each other about something. We're good friends. We work well together. If I feel like it's a better opportunity for Vic, I'll definitely pull Todd in. Certainly, Todd, if they want to reach out to you, what's your email address?
Todd.robinson@Vic.ai. So happy to talk to you. Happy to continue to educate you more, and we'll discover what your primary objectives are and point you either way.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.